Hello, everybody. So, today we are going to be talking about my newest obsession. So, if you've been around the channel long enough, you would know that I love Weird West, which is a combination of horror and Western stories. And I always say that I get the love for the Weird West from my parents because my mother loves horror and my father loves Western. And so you put the two together and you get Weird West. You get my parents, you know? It's something that I love joking about on the channel and everything. But one of the things that I've done is I've started to explore horror and its other elements and everything. And very recently I was like, I think it's time to explore Western books. Just the genre itself. I've always played with the idea, and so I've always been kind of like curious as to what it could be like to go into it. And there has been one particular author who has stood out to me a lot because he has a very extensive backlog of books, and it's a very notorious, well-known name. And so a lot of you are probably sitting here thinking, oh, she's probably reading Lonesome Dove. Eventually, I'm gonna get to Lonesome Dove, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're not here to talk about Lonesome Dove, okay? We're here to talk about no one other than Mr. Louis L'Amour, okay? Mr. Louis L'Amour. As you can see, I have all of these leatherettes behind me. These are all from the library, okay? This is where I started. Initially, I was like, you know what? I'm going to check to see if the library's got some. And the library has like the entire leatherette collection, which is crazy because that's like close to 160 books, I think it is. And this is just a drop. This is a drop, okay? I need you guys to understand that Louis L'Amour has roughly over close to 500 pieces of work. At least 98 to 100 of those are novels, which a lot of his books today could be probably considered novellas because a lot of them are around the 150 to 200 page range, but that was considered a full-length novel back then, and they are full-length stories. But by today's publishing standards, they're more like novellas because that's kind of like the standard page count for a novella nowadays. And so he has hundreds of these, hundreds. And the rest of the backlog is short stories. This man could write short stories like nobody's business, okay? There are collections of short stories. I have one of them, not Troubleshooter. You know what? I don't remember which one from here is, because there's so many up here. He has collections of short stories where they have like a good like 10 stories or something in them, and then there's just tons of those collections. And then he used to write short stories for magazines. That's where he like kind of like originally sold a bunch of his stories and everything. And then after he passed away, his son Beau put together these two specific collections called The Lost Treasures of Louis L'Amour, and they are unfinished manuscripts, unfinished novels, unfinished short stories, unfinished pitches for movies, because Louis L'Amour also pitched a ton of movies, and a bunch of his books were turned into movies. I have recently watched 3 of his books that have been turned into movies because I bought this really cool 10 movie TV Western set for $11, okay? And it includes 4 of Louis L'Amour's works that have been turned into movies. One of them, his most famously known for, is The Sackets. And so I have that, both parts 1 and 2. And then Conager is on there, Catlow, and The Quick and the Dead. And I have not watched Catlow or Conager yet, but I've watched The Sackets and The Quick and the Dead so far, and I enjoyed them. And it's very much one of those things, like I feel like they translate. I haven't read those particular books yet. I'm actually working on The Sackets right now, but the vibe of how the movies worked, I was like, yeah, this, I could tell this was written by Louis L'Amour, because at this point I have read roughly, when I look at my spreadsheet, it says I've read about 20 to 28 pieces of his work. Now, mind you, a vast majority of that is his short stories, because a lot of his short stories have audiobooks, and they're like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours kind of thing. And it's like when they're 3 hours, it's an hour per story because it's a short story. And so that's how I've like, that was where I initially started. I started with the short stories and I started with the audiobooks. And a lot of people don't like the sound effects in audiobooks. I actually love it. So like there's like, you can hear horses running in the background, you can hear guns going off, you know, it's got like the Western music and everything, and it's so immersive, and I love it because I can visualize what I read and I visualize what is being read to me when I listen to an audiobook. So like having the music and the sound effects and everything just like makes the experience so much more interesting for me. But I really love his idea of what the Western cowboy was kind of like. It was, you know, just a guy trying to do the right thing, or a guy who's kind of like thrown into a situation that he didn't try to get involved in, but he got involved, and now he's trying to do like the best he can or the right thing to do in that situation. And you know, they're not long, complicated stories. Like I said, a lot of them are like 150 pages, and I just find them so easy to digest, and I'm eating them up right now. So we're going to talk about I'm not going to talk about the short stories because there's so many of them, and honestly, I think I've probably listened to like 3 or 4 of the short stories like numerous times. Because some collections will have the same short story on it, but it's read by someone else. I will say that there are 2 audiobook collections that were put out a couple years back. They recently went on sale through Chirp Books, which was how I got them. I got them when they were $1.99. I think they're back up to like $12 or $13, but I got them when Chirp had found them on sale for $1.99. But they are called Trail Mix Volumes 1 and 2, and for the majority of the stories that are in both of those collections, they are read by none other than Willie Nelson. And then there is one particular story in there that is read by the Highwaymen, which, as we all know, 3 of the 4 Highwaymen have passed away. So these are older recordings when they were all alive. But it's so fun and it's so immersive because it's a full cast, because they also have a young lady who comes in and plays the female character and everything. And it livens it up, and there's like the music in the background, and again, like all the sound effects and everything. And it's so fun and immersive. But the versions that Willie reads, like outside of that, the other ones that he reads, he does an amazing job. And from what I was able to garner from the information I was able to find about those audiobooks, is that they are Willie Nelson's favorite Louis L'Amour stories, and that's why they were picked for those 2 collections. So I definitely recommend that if you're gonna like try to jump into Louis L'Amour's stuff, start with his short stories. Like, just start there, and honestly, don't pass up the audiobooks. Like, they're fun, and they always have like this rugged man's voice reading it to you, so that might also be like half of the reason is why I'm really enjoying these, because who doesn't love a rugged man voice? You know, who doesn't? But I'm just finding it very fascinating, and I'm finding it really fascinating learning about Louis himself and his journey through like the publishing world and everything. And one of the things that I find most interesting is that while he is mostly known for his Westerns, he really wanted to write other things than Westerns. Like, he wanted to get into fantasy, he wanted to get into historical fiction, but the publishing world during his time was very much like, your Westerns sell, we want money, you're writing Westerns. You know, it was very much keep them in a box, and they did that to a lot of their authors back then. They found the niche that they worked in and that their books sold and that they could, you know, easily rely on, and the publishing company was basically like, this is what you're doing for the rest of your life if you want to write books that make money. But he was also a man who had certain standards, which I really, really find fascinating when I was learning about him. And one of his standards that he had was he would sell scripts or unfinished manuscripts to Hollywood, essentially. And if he couldn't figure out how to finish it, he would give the money back. Like, he would go back to these producers and be like, I can't finish this and I don't want to, so here's your money back. And what was quite interesting was he had an agent also. And whenever he gave the money back, because he also did this with publishing too, is he would write like a majority of a story and he would sell it in that manner so that they would, take this and he'd only have to finish it a little bit. But if he ever hit like a roadblock or whatever and just couldn't finish it, he would in turn tell the publishers, hey, here's your money back. Give me my manuscript back. But if his agent was ever involved, he never had the agent pay back the money. So because one of the examples Bo gives is that if he was given an advance of $5,000, part of 10% of that would go to the agent. When Louis would go back to the publishers and say, hey, I can't finish this, he would in turn say, I'll pay you back the entire $5,000. But he would never go back to his agent and say, hey, you need to give me back your 10%. He would cover the entire thing himself. Like, he would not take from his agent. Like, the man had very interesting standards. He was also not into, like, hanging out with people. He was like, gotta work. That's my job. That's my purpose. I gotta work. I gotta take care of my family. I gotta keep them fed. I gotta make that money. I gotta keep food on the table. I gotta keep a roof over their heads. And so he wasn't apparently big into like the hanging out and sitting around doing nothing and, shooting the shot, as they like to say. Like, he wasn't big into that kind of stuff. And his home was filled with books just everywhere because he loved to read, but he also loved to write. And it's just like he's such a fascinating man, like when you like really start to learn about him. And you can learn a lot of it through I have volume 2 right here, but in Louis L'Amour's Lost Treasures, you can learn a lot of it through these because they have these openings that are written by Bo, who, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but that's his son. Bo L'Amour is his son. And he has these really long introductions where he talks about, in the first volume, he talks more about his dad as a person and like what his writing style was like and how he was the kind of writer who would start a story and just write and write and write and write and write. And then once he was done, then he would like go back and look at it. Like, he never would stop and edit along the way. He just wrote. He just wrote what it was, and it was like he would just get into like this trance and just and just go. And apparently there was an incident where he had told reporters and such that like he could sit in the middle of Hollywood Square and write a story, and it'd be done. And they were like, oh, we want to do a photo shoot with you, like writing on your typewriter and everything. And apparently during that photo shoot, he wrote an entire book. And I find that kind of stuff so interesting. Like, he was such a fascinating man. And then the second volume, he talks more about the publishing world and like how his dad interacted with the publishing world and how he went about trying to like sell his books and sell his stories and everything, and how he was restrained in the publishing world because they were like, you can stay writing Westerns forever because that's what sells, even though he wanted to do so much more. And he does have a fantasy book out. It's called The Walking Drum. I don't have a copy of that one just yet, but it is obviously, it's on my radar, okay? And then he's got a couple of series where they're like a generational kind of thing, like his Sackett series it's like a generational story of a family. And then I know he picked up and wrote some stories for Hopalong Cassidy, and then he's got his Beaudry series. So he's got a couple of series under his belt. And then a lot of his stuff is like standalone short stories, short story collections. I know that there are in total like 9 bind-ups in total, but 2 of them are split into 2 parts. So it's like book 4 part 1 and then book 4 part 2 and stuff like that. But it's like 9 bind-ups all together of just short stories. And they range anywhere from like the Westerns and the frontier stories to he did like some crime short stories and whatnot. So he definitely has like a broad range, but he's definitely known for like his Westerns. And from what I was seeing on the Louis L'Amour website was roughly like 60 pieces of his books were turned into movies. That's crazy. And like I said, I've watched 4 of them so far. My dad is a big fan of the Sacketts, so that was actually the first one I watched. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. It definitely, I could see why it's loved so much. And as of right now, I have started the first book in the Sacketts generational series. I think there's like 17 of them in that one. I might be a little bit wrong on that, but it's like it's around in there. It's a good chunk of them. And the first one is called Sackett's Land, and right now I'm still only about, because it's like a 5-hour long audiobook, and it is the setup. Like right now they're not even in America yet. Like they're still over in England, like in Europe and everything. And the Barnabas Sackett, he is, from what I can tell, the start of this family line. He is in the process of getting to the Americas. So he goes all that way back, and he was really, I could tell, and even from some of the stuff that I learned from listening to Bo talk about his father, was he was very big on his research and like making sure that he was depicting things correctly and making sure that his facts were like factual, you know? And one of the things that I do like about his stories is that I haven't come across any kind of racism in the stories, which is pretty interesting. And if there is, it's more so like it's a side character who is, you're not supposed to like him, you know? And so it's written in that manner where you're like, oh, that's an uneducated man who has hate inside of him, and he's hating someone else because they look different. But it's like, it's never seen, I haven't come across a story yet where like the main story kind of revolves around some kind of like racial conflict or something. The Native Americans in the story tend to, for the most part, play like a background character. They're kind of like this scary entity that the frontier men know about and they are wary about. And so it's always kind of like, hey, we got to be careful. We're roaming through Comanche land. Like they can come up at any time. Like they're this kind of like background scary thing. There's been a few books so far that I've gotten to where they do kind of come into the story a bit more, but I haven't seen him like depict them in a way that makes me go, ew, why did you depict them like that? You know, like he kind of like sticks like to the bare facts of like how they would be depicted. And then some of them, he kind of like gives like this, like when you get to that character in the story, you're kind of like, oh, there's I like how you're doing. I like how you're portraying this character, you know? I'll talk about that in one of the books. And, but it's just, and then aside from that, like not like noticing anything like that, there hasn't really been a lot of like sexism either, because he's had some stories where the villain is a woman. Okay, she's a villain, she's a baddie. Okay, and he doesn't like degrade the women down to just like being a woman. And I find it so fascinating because like, given the time period that he grew up in, the time period that he was writing in, you know, you read like a fantasy book in the same time period and you're like, wow, there's a lot of sexism in here, and the women's are just pretty girls with big boobies and stuff like that, and like they're not smart and they're not intelligent and stuff like that. And so far, all the women that I've come across in his stories, they're smart, they're tactful, they're, like I said, some are villains, you know, some are good, some are bad, you know. And the way he describes them, it's always like the most simplest way, and where it's just like, wow, she was beautiful. Look at those pretty brown eyes. Okay, thanks. You don't make it weird. You don't make it uncomfortable. You know, like he doesn't like focus on like the character's figure and stuff like that. Like there's some where I noticed during that time era, they like to say women were handsome. And I think that's so cute. Like, you're a handsome lady. Well, thank you, sir. Like, I can get down with that, okay? I find that so interesting. But he doesn't, like, I haven't come across, like, him treating a female character in any kind of horrible, derogatory way. And I will be honest, that's one of the things that made me scared to pick up Westerns. Now, mind you, I haven't read anybody else in the Western genre, so there could be some bad apples out there. But for this particular author, no, you know, and he doesn't seem to have any of like the weird, like, I think the one thing that maybe people would be, by today's standards, be like, ew, why that, is that some of his girls are like 17, 18, but then he also has some girls that are like 27, 29, like, he even had one where she was in her 30s, you know, like, he has the women all over the place and everything. And I think the only one where he would ever kind of find like any kind of pushback on would be like the girls that are like the guy's like, I think she might be like 17 or 18, but she's a pretty girl. Okay, that might be like the only thing, but like he also never goes into like grave detail with any of the romance parts. Like the hero always kind of gets the girl at the end, and it's kind of just like the story ended and they're together kind of thing. But he never like really goes into like full detail, at least not the ones I've read so far. There could be stuff out there that I haven't gotten to yet that maybe gets a little more detailed, but definitely not like to the standards of how they are today. It's just kind of like guy meets the girl, helps her, saves her, and then they live happily ever after, that kind of thing, so like I definitely appreciate that. It makes it so much easier to get into his stories because I don't have to feel like I'm dodging like all the bad stuff all the time. So that's kind of like my general gist of how and why I'm enjoying his work so much. And they're so easy to read, so easy to get through and everything. And so I'm just kind of like, these are so fun. But now I'm going to talk about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to talk about the 5 that I have finished all together. And these are like the full-length novels and everything. These are all standalones. And I will talk about my absolute favorite one. And then I have do I even have it in this pile? I don't, because it should be up here somewhere. I think it's up here somewhere. Is it this one? No. Where is it? Hold on, guys. You guys are in this with me. You know what? I might have actually returned it to the library because I bought it. So there will also be a little tiny book haul too. So let's go ahead and let's just start talking about some of these books. So we are going to start with the Californios. This one kind of touches more when he started getting into like the unknown, the more fantastical side, and it deals with them. Like, it's kind of like he believed in like alternate universes, and that there were portals that could lead to these other kind of universes and whatnot. And that's what this one kind of has. It has this folklore around this native god, and it deals with like the gold and everything. Like you go there and people go missing, but then like someone comes back and they've got something, and it kind of deals with that, and it's kind of like got like that little bit of fantastical mystery kind of thing to it, but also like the extraordinary, because it's like there's a portal that kind of leads somewhere else, and like it's kind of fun, because this one came later on in his career, because that's when he was finally like getting that chance to like branch out and try different things, but it was still like within the Western genre. And so I found this one quite interesting, especially when it started to like really kind of like dive into like the folklore idea of like this portal that could lead to another dimension. So quite interesting. Very short again, I enjoyed that one. And then we have Kilrone right here. I know I love showing you guys these because they all look exactly the same. But Kilrone, you follow Barnabas Kilrone, who ends up, he is ex-military, and he ends up at this little settlement, like a military settlement, and an old friend from there is stationed there, and he lets him know like, hey, one of your troops were attacked, completely like taken out. This is one of the ones where the natives play more of an aggressive character in this one, where they're like attacking the settlers and everything, which, I mean, that's what happened. They both attacked each other and everything, but like he also like does a really good job of presenting it about how like some of his heroes are kind of like, I mean, we were asking for it, we took their land away, because he does have some stories like that where his heroes recognize the damage that white settlers did to the native lands and everything, and how they forced the natives out of their country and everything, and out of their homes and whatnot. And so that's what this one kind of follows. It follows Kilrone trying to defend this settlement because his friend makes the decision to take a bunch of the other troops to try and go out and like find them and take them down, and it leaves the settlement open and everything, and so he has to do what he can to defend it. But then there's also like this outlaw gang that's running around as well, and so it's like he has to defend it from them, and he has to defend it from the natives, and he has to just try and survive at the same time while also fighting his own inner demons of being like, this isn't even my problem. Like, I could literally leave. Like, there's so many times where Corone in the story is kind of like, dude, I'm not even in the military anymore. Like, I could just bounce. I could just go. I could leave. But then he doesn't, because he's a hero. He's a good guy, you know? And so it's a lot of that and everything. And so it's just this one man trying to figure out how he can defend this settlement. Okay, then we have Kiowa Trail. And I may have mispronounced that, so do forgive me. But this one you follow it's a group of people that's led by a woman named Kate. She's moving her herd. They're cattle rustlers. I think cattle rustlers were the bad guys, but they were the guys who like got the cows and everything moving and everything. I'm still learning the correct terminology for certain groups of people in the Western and Frontier world. Okay, so bear with me. But they were moving cattle from one place to another, and they are passing through this town. And in that town, her brother sees a woman, and he's like, oh, she's so pretty. I gotta go talk to her. But you see, she lives on the higher side of the town, because this town is still, it has a weird like segregation thing going on where it's like, where people have money, we live in the upper side. You guys are cowboys. You live over there in the gross side. And he meets the daughter of like the most richest guy in the town and everything. And, you know, she plays games, you know, and she gets the guy, she has Kate's brother all riled up. Like, yeah, you can come and meet me. You can come to my house at night. And everybody is like, you can't go. Because every time somebody goes over there, they don't come back. And he's like, it ain't that serious. It was that serious. It was that serious, okay? And Kate doesn't let it go, okay? This was one of the first books I read where a woman holds a very predominant role in the story. And Kate said, oh, you're gonna kill my brother? That's in the synopsis. Chill. You're gonna do that? Guess what? Nobody's getting into this town. Nobody. Because the thing is Kate apparently had bought land on both sides of this town, and she said, oh, I guess I'm just gonna choke you guys. And literally, homegirl chokes this town, okay? The people who want to leave, who did no harm, she allows to leave, but she does not let anybody in. So other traders who are coming, she's like, nope, it's my land, you can't cross it, goodbye. And so this town can't get to anything. And, you know, then the gang wars start and the fighting starts and everything. But she is so just not happening. Not on my watch. Not going to happen. You're not getting through. She was not having it. She was not having it. And one of the cool things with these particular characters is that they pop up again in a short story. I forget the name of the short story, but I actually just read it a couple, like last week, and I was like, wait a second, are these the same? And then she mentions the events from this book, and I was like, oh my god, it's the same people. Because that's the other thing too, he would reuse names, he would reuse characters and stuff like that, and so sometimes though he would have the same character with like the same name, but it's not the same person. But this particular instance it was. And so I was like, yes, but that one's a good one because she was not playing. She was like, oh, so that's how we're gonna be? That's how it's gonna be? Okay, bet. Then we have Passing Through. This is where you follow the story of Passing Through. That's what he calls himself because that's what he does. He just passes through towns. And that's about it. But it's so much more than that because he ends up meeting these two ladies who work on a ranch, and like the ranch is like falling apart, and he's like, well, I can help fix some stuff. Like, it's a nice looking ranch, you know, and I can get some money out of it. I can have a place to sleep for a little bit, but then once I'm done, I'm out of here. And then he ends up meeting I think he called him a Pinkerton, which is a cop, if I understood, if I have the verbiage correctly, but I do know it was like a cop detective kind of thing, but I think the term that was used was Pinkerton. But he meets a detective or cop or whatever, and he's looking for a woman for murder because she murdered somebody. And so he gets involved in that and tries to first like avoid being involved in it, but then he gets really involved in it. But there were sometimes through this story where I was getting so frustrated with passing because I was like, bro, you cannot be this stupid. You cannot be this stupid. Like, can you be aware for 5 seconds? Like, there were times when I got so annoyed with him because I was just like, bro, I see where this is going and you're like a deer in headlights. What's happening here? Like, this is why you be passing through, because you're really not that smart. You know? But you get more into it and you're like, which one is the murderer? Who's the murderer? You know, and then he ends up meeting another woman in the story who ends up becoming like his little love interest or whatever. And, you know, he ends up like fighting the whole idea of like, do I want to settle down? Do I want to keep passing through? Like, what do I want to do? And I'm like, bro, I want you to figure out the mystery. I want you to realize what's happening around you. Then you can worry about your love life, okay? He does, of course, eventually figure it out and everything, but it's one of the more interesting ones because the women in the story, one of them is in her 30s, the other one's in her early 20s, but also there's a woman murderer on the loose, and she's killing people with food, like she's poisoning them, and I'm just like, oh yeah, we love an evil woman. And then we have The Burning Hills, where you follow Trace Jordan, who is running from the Sutton Ranch boys, and because he angered them, he upset them, but he's wounded and he's hurt and he's like in the canyons, and then a woman comes to his rescue, and he's like, gosh, that's a beautiful woman right there, but also those guys over there are trying to kill me, but I want to get to know this beautiful woman right here. So he has a lot of like internal strife about that, but it's more so just you're watching him try to survive and get away from these Sutton men and everything, while also learning how Maria is caught up in this as well, because she is having trouble with these men as well, you know. And so it's a battle for survival. Like, that's kind of like the best way to explain this one. Is it's very much a battle for survival and trying to outwit and out survive and also get the girl. You know, it's probably one of the more like, there's action in it, but like I said, like, it's very much a survival kind of thing, and there is kind of like a really big plot kind of revolves around his attraction to Maria and everything, and you know, her trying to like deny her attraction to him and stuff like that. And so a really good one if you kind of want more of like a man surviving while being wounded kind of situation. And then I've also read Taggart, and this one you follow Taggart, who's on the run from I forget what he's on the run from, but he's on the run, but he's considered a bounty hunter, and he comes across a woman who's transporting some stuff, and they're transporting it through like the Apache lands. I will say this is one of the more forgetful ones. I kind of just didn't really mesh with this one too well. And that's bound to happen. Like, out of like the 28 something books of his stuff that I've read, like, it's bound to happen. But it's definitely just kind of like she's on the run, because it says here she's on the run with pure raw gold and everything. That's what she's trailing with her, and Apaches are after her. And he's also already on the run from his own issues, and like their issues kind of like collide, and he also wants to stay and like protect the girl and everything. It's, like I said, it's one of the more forgetful ones, but it's still worth checking out. I would say out of all of them, that's probably the one that I have the most foggiest memories about reading, and I guess it didn't really like pop off to me too much. But then we have what is currently my favorite one so far, and that is Down the Long Hills. This was actually the first long, like, because I started with the short stories. This was the first full-length story that I read, and I absolutely love this one. You follow, is he 7 or 10? He's 7. You follow a 7-year-old boy who has with him 3-year-old little Betty Lou and a horse. Okay, this big giant horse. This big giant horse, okay? It's little 7-year-old boy, and he is trying to get himself and Betty Lou and that horse to his dad because they were traveling west with Betty Lou's parents, because his dad went ahead to go find a place and everything, and then he, sent for them to, hey, it's time to come and join me. So they were traveling and everything, and their entire caravan gets massacred by the roaming natives that are in the area. The children were missed because it happened in the middle of the night, and this all happens in the first 3 pages, and that's because they went to go get the horse because the horse had wandered off, and he's like, that's my daddy's horse, and nobody can have my daddy's horse. My daddy will be mad if that horse goes missing, okay? And so he had snuck out to go get the horse. Little Betty Lou followed because she's 3, and so that's how they got missed in the massacre. From there, this 7-year-old boy takes Betty Lou, a 3-year-old little girl, and that giant horse, and he starts traveling west. And the only thing, this little boy could hunt, he could build a fire, he knew how to hide his tracks because his dad taught him all these things. And you're watching this 7-year-old boy care for a 3-year-old, do what he can for her, try to feed her, try to keep her warm, try to keep her, safe and everything, because then he picks up on the fact that they're being followed by a native man. I think it's an Apache, if I remember correctly. And they're being followed. But there's a few times where we get the perspective from the native side, and he's like, at first, he's like, I want that horse. That's a good horse. I can tell I want that horse. But then he's like, are those little people with him, or are they children? Because the native cultures, they have folklore about little people and how they're not to be messed with. And I don't know much about that particular folklore, but it's used in this to create more backstory for the native character. But then he realizes it's children. But then he's sitting there, and he's like, this is a little warrior. He's like, I'm gonna get that horse, and then I'm gonna take them kids too, because that's a little warrior. And I was like, that's actually kind of cute. Stop. Because at first he was just like, I want that horse so that I can look like the coolest guy on the block. But then he's like, wait a second. This kid knows how to build a fire. He knows how to hunt. He knows how to fish. He knows how to hide his tracks. He knows how to try and fake his tracks. He's like, this is a little warrior. This kid is amazing. And I was just like, stop. He's so proud of this kid. And then they run into bandits and everything who are like, oh, we'll just steal the horse and kill the kids. No one will know. We're in the middle of nowhere. And then you also get the storyline from his father's point of view, because his father finds out that the caravan was massacred, and he's like, well, what did you find a young boy and a little girl? And they're like, no. And he's like, my boy's out there. And everyone's like, you're not going to find them. And he's like, no, because here's the thing. My boy knows I'm going to be looking for him. And that little boy, sure enough, was like, my pa's looking for me. I know he is. He ain't going to give up on me. And so from both perspectives, you see that where the boy is just constantly like, I know my dad's looking for me. And then from the dad's perspective, he's like, I know my boy knows I'm looking for him, so I'm going to be looking for him. And he's like, and if y'all don't want to come look with me to look for my boy, you can go back. But I'm not stopping. And it's so amazing. And they're just like, you don't even know. You don't know this, you don't know that. And he's like, no, I trained my boy. I trained my boy good. And I'm just like, stop, this is so good. And then there's a fight scene between a horse and a bear, because this horse, just a good boy, okay? Just a good boy right there, okay? But it's so good, you guys. I was not expecting to follow a 7-year-old. And it just really puts into perspective the difference of kids' lives today versus kids' lives on the frontier. Just all the things that this kid could do at the age of 7 while also caring for a 3-year-old child. The only thing this boy could not do was explain to her that her parents died, because he didn't know how to handle that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. This kid could do everything else. If he didn't know how to have a hard conversation like that, that's A-okay in my book. Okay? And then it has one of just the most like sweetest ending moments that I'm not even going to tell you guys about, because it is just it is beautiful. It is perfect. It is like the best way that he could have ended this book. Like, I love this book. This is my favorite of everything that I've read so far. It is number 1, 5 stars. I love this. And I went to work and I was just like, oh my God, you guys, I have to tell you about Down the Long Hills. And everyone was like, what is that? And I was like, it's the Western book that I'm reading right now. And they're like, you're still in this Western thing? And I was like, I'm gonna be in this phase for a while, guys. This is who I am now. Okay, deal with it. And they do. God, they love me at work. It's so great. So those are the full-length stories that I've read so far. It's a lot, I know. I'm having so much fun making this video. I know it's going to be long. Sorry, guys. I hope you enjoy it. Get some drinks and snacks. Probably should have said that at the beginning. But now we're getting to the fun part where we talk about the books that I've hauled. I'm not going to like talk about these ones here because these are just from the library. But I am going to be reading these, so there are going to be more video updates about what I've read in the Louis series. But there's also the books that I've bought, because yes, I'm buying this man's books. And I know in my last haul, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm picky about the books that I buy. You know, I try not to spend too much money and everything. But I can tell you right now, I spent, I think it was about $40 for all of these. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So about 22 books for $40. That's not bad. The most expensive being, I think it was like $3.49, and then the cheapest being 75 cents. So they're all used, okay? And I opted to get the mass markets because I love the covers. While, yes, these are pretty, they're too plain for my taste. They are easier to read because, you know, it's hardback, it's bigger and everything. But I really, really love these because I love the covers. So let's go ahead and let's jump into this. We're going to go over the first pile of books where I got half of them at Half Price Books, and then I got the other half at Boomerang Books, which is a local used bookstore near me. And I just have to tell you about the interaction that I had with the old man who runs that store. He's adorable. He's sweet. I love the old couple that run this store. I came up to the counter and I had like 9 of them, and he was like, you know, usually it's old men who come in buying these Western books, not young ladies like yourself. And I was like, well, it's what I love right now. And he was like, well, he writes very good books. He's like, so you've picked out some good stuff. And I was like, good. I was like, I will be back because you've got more that I want to get. So yeah, but let's go ahead and let's start. So this one is Tucker. Okay. We got Tucker, and then we got Westward the Tide. That's actually a sticker that I haven't peeled off yet because it's really old, so I got to be careful with it. And then we have Daybreakers. This is part of the Sackett's series. This one says Sackett's number 3, but the thing is they got reordered, like numerically, like how to read them properly. And this one actually comes, I think, later on in the series. So, but that was like after he had started to release like more in the Sackett series. So the number's a little off, but like I like the cover. And this was actually one of the books that the TV series was based off of for the Sackett's TV series that they did, or movies that they did. And then we have the Mountain Valley War. Again, like look at these covers are just so fun. Like, oh, I just love them. And then we have The Quick and the Dead. This is one where I've watched the movie. I watched the movie, I think it was Sunday when I watched it. And so I do plan on reading this book. And then we have Ride the Dark Trail, another one that's part of the Sackett's series. I don't know if it's number 14 still, but yeah. And then my version of Kilrone. And then we have Beaudry and Beaudry's Law. These are, from what I understand, they're just, they're each like full of short stories that kind of like follow Beaudry. But it's the whole collection because it was only 2 in the Beaudry series that he did. And then we have Galloway, which is also part of the Sackett's series. I really like that one, you know. And then we have Showdown at Yellow Butte. So that was the first round that I did, and which these two were part of that first round that I did. And then I went back over to Half Price on Mother's Day, the day before Mother's Day. And if you're new here, I'm a mother. I have a child. She's 17. And Saturday I was out. I actually went out for something else, but Half Price was in the same parking lot. And I was like, let's just go browse. And it was like they restocked the Louis L'Amour books because they had so many more in really good condition. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get myself a Mother's Day gift. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got 9 books that day. So we got a second volume of Tucker, and this is because I like this cover more. So I'm actually going to get rid of the other Tucker that I have because, like, this is a lot cooler. Like, when you look at them compared to each other, this is a lot cooler. Like, it's got a good, like what do the kids say nowadays? Aura farming. This is the one, okay? So I will be getting rid of the other one because I wanted this one instead. Hold on, the pile fell over. Then we got Flint. This is one that I hear a lot of people really, really like. When I go and I look at the bros who talk about Louis, this one seems to be a pretty big favorite. And then we have Mojave Crossing, another one that's part of the Sackett's series. And then we have Radigan. Again, like, I really like this cover too. Like, just that lone cowboy out in the snow. Gotta know, what's his story? And then we have the Sackett brand, again, part of the Sackett series. And I think because these guys on the cover look just like, yeah, it's the brothers that were in the movie, Tell, Oren, and Tyrell, because they actually look like the actors, which is kind of funny. Then we have Conager, How the West Was Won, Utah Blaine, and To Tame a Land. This was the cheapest one. This was the one I got for 75 cents. So those are all the ones that I've bought. So there will definitely be lots of updates because I think, like, because this is Mojave Crossing, this is Galloway, so, like, those could end up going back to the library since I own them now and stuff, and then Westward the Tide, So, yes, I have lots to read, and I'm loving these, and I'm having so much fun, and I needed to share this with you guys. So there's going to be updates, like, throughout this channel's time where I'm just going to do, like, a big giant update for more Louis and everything. And again, like, I'm sorry that this video ended up being so long because I have so much to say because I love it so much, you guys. Like, I'm in heaven right now. Like, and I know some of it is because I just have not been enjoying fantasy right now because the direction that it's taken, it doesn't have my interests, Like, I don't care about all that stuff. Like, I want the adventure. I want the fun. I don't care about people banging each other. It's not my thing, But this is giving me what I want. And it's so fun. Like, and what's also fun is, like, I get to talk to my dad about it and everything, and he's, like, recommended shows and stuff for me to watch. He wasn't a big reader, but he was definitely a big, like, watcher. And so he's been, he, like, recommends stuff, and I, like, tell him about the stuff that I've been reading and watching and everything. So it's nice to, like, find something to also connect with my dad about and everything. So I'm living my best life right now, you guys. I am reading other stuff at the same time because that right there, that's a pile of other books that I have checked out. I can look, before you guys flip out and are like, all of that is checked out, I'm allowed to have up to 60 books checked out at a time. I am keeping my library publicly funded by checking out this many books, okay? I only have like 43 right now. Chill out, guys. I can have 60. Okay? But I am reading other stuff in between so that I don't get burnt out, but it's kind of hard to get burnt out on something that you're just, like, absolutely in love with. And I am absolutely in love with all of these Western Louis L'Amour books right now. Like, I am living my best life, as I have been saying, okay? So there will definitely be more updates for the ones that I read. They won't be as long as this. It'll just kind of be like, I read more Louis L'Amour, It'll be more of that and just more of, like, how I feel about it, And yeah, I'm also in the middle of reading this one right now, the second volume of The Lost Treasures. I listened to the audiobook on my way to work. I will say I do so far like volume 1 more, but that's okay. You know, that's how it is. Like, I know I'm not going to love every single one of his pieces of work, but right now, I love them. I enjoy them. I'm having a great time, you know, and with me getting rid of that star, like, his books were what geared me towards getting rid of star ratings, because I'm like, I don't know what star rating to attach to these, because I'm having fun. I love them. I'm enjoying them. If you had to force me to attach stars to a bunch of these, 3, 4, you know, down the long hill, that gets a 5. There's no question, ifs, ands, or buts about that, okay? That's a 5-star story right there, okay? And out of all the ones I've read so far, that is the one I recommend. If you guys want to read one, read that one. It was so good, okay? That little boy could do everything, okay? Hats off to him. He kept Betty Lou safe. So, yes, that is my very long-winded current obsession. I'm loving this. I'm enjoying this. I'm having a great time. I'm going to get more of these books, but I'm also working my way through the ones that I own, okay? So, out of the ones that I have bought here, I would say 4 of them have been read, but I do have like the audiobook for Utah Blaine right now. I think I also have How the West Was Won. So I've got a couple more audiobooks to go along with these, because honestly, the audiobooks is also what's helping too, because like I said, they're being read to me in like a rugged man's voice, and I'm just like, okay, go kill somebody. Do what you gotta do, buddy. Call that girl pretty. So yes, I don't know if this is gonna reach anybody who currently follows me. If I find new people because of this video, hi, hello, welcome. I'm in love with Louis L'Amour's work. I would love to get to know you. If you guys just think I'm kind of crazy right now, I guess you guys can let me know that in the comments, you know, it's okay. But like I said, you will hear about other stories from me, because I am reading other stuff in between, you know, so you don't have to worry about just all of my updates only being Louis L'Amour. There's just going to be a lot of updates about Louis L'Amour, but I will try and keep it separate. That way, if you guys aren't interested, you don't have to worry about like listening to this girl yap about Cowboys again. But I will say that it is, the more of them I read, the more I'm also like, okay, I think I want to like eventually branch out into other authors. And the first one will be that Lonesome Dove. You know, I'll read that one, you know, because it is so highly acclaimed. But this guy right here, this guy has my heart right now. This is what's bringing me happiness and joy right now, and that's all that matters for me. So I'm actually really interested to see how many I get read by the end of the year, just because I'm loving this so much. He is currently my top most read author right now, according to my spreadsheet. He is my top read, and my Westerns have now overtaken my fantasy, because fantasy was the most read, and it's now Westerns. So I definitely know by the end of the year, Westerns are going to be my most read genre. So I'm just calling it now. By how much, I don't know, but yeah. So that's everything. That's all we're going to talk about. I'm going to end this because I know this has gotten ridiculously long, but I'm so excited. And I've just been waiting to make this video. And you know what? If people watch it, they watch it. If they don't, they don't. That's the beauty of YouTube, I guess. So if you guys enjoyed this and you stuck it out to the very end, thank you so much. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.